All right. Thank you guys. So I don't have to answer it a billion times. Pastor Pete and I got in a race trying to find out who was going to wear the cool microphone. Somehow I fell, right? He called it divine intervention. I doubt that was the case. So we'll have to go through that too much more. So Kyle and Susan had asked me just to talk a little bit about them and who they are and really what makes them. So I kind of figured I'd ask a lot of their family members and friends some information because I thought it'd be best to involve them in their lives since they're such a big part of their lives. Susan also asked me to keep this under a certain time. And I told her, don't worry, just like Kyle, I'll keep it quick. So I once was told that time is one thing that money can't buy. You can spend time, you can give time, you can lose time, but it's a finite piece of our lives. And I started thinking, our lives are really about who we spend our time with and what we do and accomplish during that time. Susan and I have been spending time together for 25 years, 9 months, and 28 days. It's a long time, guys, all right? Now, during that time, we've been great friends. We've probably been enemies a handful of times, but we've always stuck together and we've always had great experiences. Over the last month, I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of their family members and friends, and consistently, 3 words kept coming up throughout the stories I heard: thoughtful, generous, and a bit stubborn. When I think about Susan's thoughtfulness, I think about a gift she gave my wife and I when we had our first child. She, like I kind of did, went around and started asking all of our friends and family members about why we would be good parents. She made us a book that had writings, pictures, all types of things, truly from the heart. And people don't do that now, right? You get a teddy bear and maybe a diaper party, something like that. But that's how thoughtful Susan is. She's willing to give her love to almost anybody that's willing to accept it. From a generosity standpoint, she's been extremely generous with her time. I think of all the young men and women at Parkway West who have had the experience of having her not just as a teacher, but as a coach. She's given so much of her personal time to help develop these young athletes, help them find love in a sport that she's cared about her entire life. And lastly, stubborn. And I say stubborn in a good way, all right? It doesn't come off the tongue in a good way, but Susan is stubborn from her ability to not take no for an answer. Her brothers used to go outside when she was young, and she'd toddle out after them. No matter what they were playing, no matter what they were doing, they're causing complete mayhem, which they definitely do still to this day. She would just run out after him. Didn't matter if she was told she was little, didn't matter if she was told she didn't belong. She consistently just kept pushing. And that helped her throughout life. If we look at what she's accomplished in her personal life and professional life, anytime someone tells Susan she can't, she's just too darn stubborn to listen. That might have been the one from Kyle, right? So I think I speak for everyone in this room that obviously we're all blessed with the amount of time that we've had to spend with you guys. Kyle, thinking about you, I've been spending time with Kyle now for 1 year, 10 months, 17 days. Oddly enough, Kyle and I have been friends for 1 year, 10 months, 17 days. To know Kyle is to love Kyle. If you've met him, you're his best friend right away. And I think it's one of those things that is immaculate when you think of a man and what they can give in a friendship. The first time I met him, we were sitting across from each other, and his face is covered in butter. He's eating a massive crab leg, and he's got a big old bib on. And he's got a grin on his face, that one right there. And I thought to myself, if this guy's willing to look like this in public and be this goofy, we're going to get along extremely well. And we kicked it off pretty good. So like with Susan, I called a lot of his family members and asked them and started finding out what they thought of Kyle's history and what made him the man he is today. And consistently, they talked about how loving he is, how caring he is, and how kind he is. When I think of his loving nature, I think of the first time that I met his family. We came out to New Haven, spent an entire day with him. His love and aspirations for his family is untouched and unmatched by any man I've ever met. Within the first 90 minutes of being in town, I met his mom, his dad, his aunt, his uncle, and would later that afternoon meet 2 of his cousins. It was pridefulness inside of him to have him introduce each of those individuals to my wife and myself, and everybody welcomed us with open arms. I was told this great story about Kyle and how much he loved his grandpa. And his first day of kindergarten, he thought it'd be a great idea to honor his grandpa because he looked up to him to wear a tie in the kindergarten. His mom and dad quickly said, "Hey, we want you to have friends, okay? Let's maybe not wear that tie." And young Kyle thought about it and said, "Okay, all right, I won't do it. I'll put the tie away." But little did they know, he snuck it into his book bag, took it to school, promptly put it on as soon as he possibly could. Luckily enough, there was a bow tie aficionado in that class who ended up being his best friend for the rest of his life and is standing up here today. And I think of his friends. You start meeting these guys, which I had the pleasure of doing at the lake for the bachelor party. And it's the only bachelor party story I'll tell. Generosity and loving is the best way I can describe his friends. And I don't know why I was caught off guard by how great of men they were, because you surround yourself with like-minded people. And they've surrounded themselves with Kyle for that exact same very reason. When I think about how deeply caring Kyle is, I start thinking about his courtship with Susan. Oftentimes when they'd start going out on dates together and spend time together, Susan would just say something about something she liked. Maybe it might be a bottle of wine. Maybe it might be a piece of food. Maybe it might be an area of town. And he started to memorize that stuff and then would bring her those gifts, take her to those places. I mean, these are types of things that you read about, right? These are like storybook type things, but this is their real life. And it's been such a wonderful thing to see that love mature. From a kindness standpoint, it could have been Kyle's middle name, right? I mean, the guy is so kind. He really goes out of his way to do anything for someone. And one of the stories I had heard about how his kindness manifested itself was when he was a kid in school. There was a local bus driver who was kind of down and out on his times, and Kyle decided with a couple schoolmates to collect some money to help that individual back on their feet. And this is a young man who's doing something like that. I mean, I know my group of friends from high school, and if we raised money for somebody, it didn't make it out of our pockets, let alone did it for a good reason. So one of those things I think we can all look at. So, in parting words, just a few things to tell you as you continue in your time together. Spend time listening to each other, even when it's hard to, even when you don't want to. Listen not just to respond, but to actually love. Lose track of time. It's a waste to stare at your watch when you're this much in love. Finally, don't spend so much time trying to correct all of each other's imperfections. Those rigid edges are what makes you guys fit so well together. If you feel the need to make some fine-tuned adjustments, do it in a way that the other one just doesn't know you're doing it. Love you guys.